All right, today we're diving into something really intense. It's a deeply personal story about systemic failure, the nitty-gritty of neurobiology, and a totally unique way one man used symbolic logic to make sense of it all. This is the story of Denis Verhaeghe, and we're going to explore his perspective on a profound betrayal and what happens to the human mind when it's pushed to the absolute limit.
So let's just start with the central question here. What happens when the very person, the very system that's supposed to help you becomes the thing that hunts you? This question is the absolute core of the conflict, the situation where a support system allegedly becomes a source of real harm. That's the narrative we're about to unpack.
And get this, the story's central figure is Denis Verhaeghe, and his own last name gives us the first clue. Verhaeghe in Dutch literally means the hunting ground. You can't make this stuff up. His own name becomes this powerful metaphor for his entire experience, a landscape where he felt he was the one being targeted. So let's kick things off with Section 1. A man, a hunting ground. This is where we get to know Denis Verhaeghe, his unique mind, his specific circumstances, and what he says made him so vulnerable to everything that happened next. So who is this guy Denis Verhaeghe? Well, his profile it's a real mix of incredible strengths and serious vulnerabilities. He's bilingual, and he's twice exceptional, which is a term for someone who's both gifted and has a learning disability, in his case, dyslexia. He's what's called a 3D visual thinker, meaning he processes information in a very spatial way. But, and this is key, at the time all this went down, he was in a really fragile state after major surgery and was also dealing with some intense labor exploitation. This specific combination is absolutely critical to understanding the whole story. And that complex profile, well, it really sets the stage for what comes next in Section 2, the betrayal of a gatekeeper. This is the turning point, where a system that was supposed to help, allegedly, becomes the main source of the problem. You see, in these kinds of situations, the forensic psychiatrist is supposed to be the key player. Their entire job is to understand a neurodivergent profile like Denis's, explain it to others, and fight for the support he needs. They're meant to be a translator, an advocate. And this slide just lays it all out, plain and simple. On the left, you've got the ideal role, what he calls the debugger, someone who would advocate for him and help his cognitive system work. But on the right, that's the role he says was actually played, a disabling agent, someone who he claims doubled down on the exploitation, ignored the science, and just made everything worse.
He even has this incredible metaphor for it. He describes the psychiatrist's actions as creating a dim sum, which stands for a dimmed supramedullary nucleus. Now, this part of the brain is absolutely vital for the rhythms that control our memory and how we understand space. So the failure wasn't just some abstract idea. He describes it as something that was actively messing with the core functions of his brain.
And that brings us right into Section 3, the biology of hell. This is where we're going to trace how that alleged betrayal actually translated into what Denis describes as real, tangible, physical damage to his own brain and body. Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Was this all just a feeling, a metaphor, or did this whole experience cause actual, measurable harm? Well, according to the source material, the answer is an emphatic yes. The damage was very, very real. We're talking about the brain's very wiring getting messed up, what's called neural desynchronization. The timing was all off. This supposedly led to messed up motor control, problems perceiving basic shapes and colors, and what he calls drop balls in his neural algorithm. It's like the betrayal and stress literally blocked his brain's ability to heal and adapt. And that experience, man, he sums it up with this incredibly powerful line. He says it wasn't just like hell. For him, it was hell, by the literal definition of the word. And when you actually look up where that word comes from, you see this surprising, almost spooky connection. You might think you know what hell means, but check this out. The word comes from an old term meaning the concealed place. It's not about fire and brimstone. It's about a hidden, isolated place of suffering. And that just perfectly captures this idea of a deep, internal, neurobiological chaos that nobody on the outside can see. So, you're trapped in this concealed place. How do you get out? Well, that's Section 4, decoding the chaos. This is where we see the unique logical map that Denis created to make sense of his own experience and find a way forward. It turns out he developed his own kind of algorithm to understand his reality. It's like he was cracking a code. And this code has 3 parts: a name, a computer science framework, and a very specific numerical rhythm. Let's break it down. Okay, so the code starts with the name Tom, which he uses to symbolize innocence and integrity, the very things that we're missing. Then he links that idea to base 16, or hexadecimal, which is the system computer programmers use to find bugs in complex code. It's brilliant, right? The psychiatrist should have been the debugger for his complex mind, but wasn't.
Okay, stay with me here, because this is where it gets really fascinating. He takes these abstract numbers and connects them directly to his own biology. The number 2426 is seen as a kind of biblical algorithm pointing to a natural rhythm. This rhythm is based on a base 13 structure, which he says corresponds to our biological timing. And the final piece of the puzzle, the solution to the code, is a path to healing, something called oxytocin-mediated synaptic syncing. It's a real biological process that helps stabilize our brain.
And all of this decoding, all of this work, it leads us to the final chapter, a Dionysian transformation. This is about finally moving out of that concealed place and onto a path of real recovery and self-mastery. By creating this system to decode the chaos of his personal hell, Dennis essentially becomes this modern-day version of the Greek god Dionysus. Dionysus is all about transformation and rebirth, about going down into the underworld and coming back totally changed. This metaphor perfectly frames his journey as not just one of suffering, but of incredible transformation. So what does that path actually look like? Well, it's these steps right here. It all starts with understanding the biological damage, then decoding the twisted logic of the betrayal. From there, it's about actively working to resync those neural rhythms, that base 13 from his code. And finally, creating a new story for himself, a story where he overcomes the hunting ground and achieves true self-mastery. So I want to leave you with this thought. If we go with that ancient definition of hell being a concealed place of suffering, it really makes you think, doesn't it? It poses a powerful question for all of us. What hidden logic, what personal codes might be waiting to be deciphered inside our own struggles? It takes this one man's incredibly specific story and suddenly makes it feel universal.